The wolf and their symbolism. This is a little video I created inspired by the next full moon. That's going to be the wolf moon. And that's where I want to start giving you some nice information that I hope you'll be using for self-reflection and making your life more in tune with yourself, your inner nature, and the outer nature. So maybe let's get inspired by the way the wolves function. This is called the wolf moon because during this period of the year in January, it's when you can hear them howl the most. And that is because they reach maximum capacity of their pack. A pack of wolves can be anything from 3 to maximum of 36 has ever been recorded. But who knows in the past how many more there used to be. So what happens is that around January, the pack reaches its maximum capacity. Most of the youngs are fully grown, and so the alpha male, and that's going to be more information about that later, but the alpha male starts howling, and all the other wolves, they go sort of like in a chorus. They like to howl for each other for pleasure. There's also howling for danger and for hunting purposes. But this full moon, it's called the wolf moon because during this time of the year, tribe people or farmers, they could hear the wolves howling way more because they were celebrating the capacity of their community, their strength. And the reason why this is the moment they were hidden the most and why this is the moment of maximum capacity is because in February and in March, that's where their mating season starts. And so young wolves would either challenge the alpha or leave the pack altogether to go and either become the lone wolf or go create their own pack. So the very first interesting thing is that if you are a strong young wolf, you challenged your alpha and it didn't work out for you, you left the pack, that doesn't make you an alpha male. So I've been really intrigued by this because by now in society we associate alpha male with like this strong, independent sort of masculine. However, what I found out that is a lone wolf, because to be an alpha male, it needs an alpha female. What really is the concept of alpha is the couple, and by covering this role of the father, the one that takes care of the pack, the one that takes all of the responsibility together with his alpha female, that's when a wolf becomes an alpha. So there you go for all the people like, I'm an alpha male, I'm an alpha male. Well, not yet. You are a young wolf. If you have a partner next to you that you also recognize as alpha, that has a very specific role in the pack, then you are an alpha male. So there's the story for you. You can't be alpha male if you don't have your alpha female. And it's really interesting because indeed the alpha male is at the top of the pack, is the first one to be allowed to eat, but he's also the one in charge for all strategy, choosing the hunting ground, choosing when to go hunt, what prey to go after. So there's a lot of responsibility that's given to the alpha male. And even though he has the right to eat first, all the others, when they are hungry, they show their belly, which is like a maximum proof of vulnerability. So in the pack, the alpha male allows and requires a certain amount of vulnerability. It's not only submission, but it's the fact that the people under him, they feel safe enough to show their belly. And if he wanted to attack them, he could, but he doesn't. And that's where the being alpha is about, because the lone wolf, the young wolf that's grown and has challenged the alpha, it's kicked out of the pack. But if you are an alpha male, when you see others showing you vulnerability, that is your signal to stop eating and allowing others to eat. Even though you might be hungry or you might not feel like it, the alpha male is the one that shows the most responsibility over even his own instinct in order to keep the pack safe. As I mentioned, As I mentioned before, the alpha male only becomes one when he has an alpha female. And the alpha female, she's in charge of defense as much as the alpha male is in charge of hunting and attacking and finding the territory. The alpha female is in charge of breeding and bringing up the young wolves. Here, there's another very interesting things. So you can be the alpha couple, and then there are two layers of society until you get of wolf society, obviously, until you get to the bottom, that is the puppies, the elders, and the injured or sick. Because really beautiful about the wolf pack is that nobody is left behind. The only wolf that really is fend for themselves is the lone wolf, the one that is decided to challenge the alpha and leave their society. But anyway, in the middle layers of their society, you have the second tier, which is the warriors, that it's made both of male and females. So when the alpha dog, alpha wolf decides to attack, there's both male and females joining the hunting party. Then the third layer of society are the youngs, that are again both males and females, and they are in charge of the last layer, which is, as I said before, the puppies, the elder, and the sick and injured. So you see that actually taking care, being nourishing, it's not necessarily female or male. It just depends on level of maturity and level of strength. So it's not, and that's something that I found mind-blowing, because in society we have decided that, you see nature in biology, males are about this and females are about that, but there's much more nuance and there's much more layering when you start looking into it. So you have young wolves that train the puppies to fight, and then you have older women that are sort of like the shield maiden in the Vikings tradition. So already from looking into the biology and the societal structure of wolf, we can learn that it's not that black and white as we have been sold. So it's important both for us as humans to find our inner wolf, both as a male and as a female. And as I was mentioning before, the alpha female is the one in charge of defense. And that really goes to show you the strategic and also battle-like power of the female, and how together the alpha male and the alpha female, they take responsibility over the whole pack, and they make sure that everybody is safe, is fed, and they work as a team. That's something that comes up again and again when in my events we talk about the feminine and the masculine. We have been brainwashed into thinking that there is this battle of the sexes, of the gender. But nature shows us and teaches us, almost like a bit too much in the face, how much goodness can come, how much strength can come when the masculine and the feminine, they cooperate, they know how to play onto each other's strength, and they also don't confine themselves to, like the female is the weak, but actually the alpha female is the strongest female in the pack, and she also rules over some of the males, the young, the old, and also the ones that are not ready to be warriors yet, but they cover this nourishing role yet, where they are no longer puppies, but also no warriors. Within the pack, you also have different families if the pack is bigger than three. And these families, they decide that they choose whether to be in the warrior or into that third tier sort of ranking. But what is beautiful is that they get to choose. So that also reconnects to our lone wolf. When one of the puppies grows into the youngling and it becomes then strong enough to be a warrior, it can choose whether to submit to the leadership of the alpha male, or decide that that's not his thing. And so it would either challenge or peacefully leave the pack. And here starts the adventure for him, because when he's a lone wolf, he has a high probability of dying of hunger, because one of the hunting techniques of wolves is to basically wage siege to one of their preys. It's just like a waiting game. So when it's alone, it can only hunt the smaller prey that will give him less nourishment, and it's not as easy. The odds are stacked against him. So his best chance to survive, it's either find another pack where he has a better relationship with the alpha male, or start his own pack. It's like the quote from Game of Thrones: when the winter comes, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. And so that is the message that I also want to bring to the people that maybe have been seeing my event, and they've been thinking that they feel like this strong, independent, wild, free person, but there's something missing. Here is nature teaching us again: what you're missing is a pack. You need. There is so much to say about the wolf. So here there's a second part with more of the cultural insights and information I found around the wolf. And the first thing is that the symbol of the wolf has different meanings throughout different cultures. However, we can spot a certain pattern. And I'd like to start to tell you about the werewolf. Where this idea came from was actually from the Romans coming across the Northerners that would fight with wolf pelts and wolf fur around them. And they would also fight under the influence of psychedelics like mushrooms or other plants that would give them apparently extra strength. And that's what was terrifying for the Romans and for other cultures that had never encountered that. If you are a fan of Vikings, you have seen that they do take psychedelics. And as they were going to battle into this trance, into this frenzy, covered with their fur, because that was normal for the cold weather where they were used to, they gave this idea of being magical, of actually turning into wolves and coming into battle with this super powerful, super strong way to fight. Also from Rome comes the story of the she-wolf, La Lupa. So in Roman mythology, Romolo and Remo, they were the children of Mars together with a mortal. They were abandoned, and this she-wolf found them and she raised them. That's why actually the wolf is the symbol of Rome and the Roman Empire. And here the symbol is this duality of the wolf that is, yes, independent, but as we said before, it really reaches its maturity, its purpose by being nourishing, by taking responsibility over those who are more vulnerable and weak. So here comes already a first insight into a theme that will come across different cultures, where the wolf represents two things. On one side is independent, scary, greedy, mean wolf, but on the other side is nourishing, wise, wild animal that knows the difference between protecting their pack, protecting what it's important, and attacking. So there's already another way for you to look at the wolf, and the wolf that you might be feeling inside of you. Many centuries later, this idea of the werewolf comes back. During the times of witch trial, the Catholic Inquisition had a list of all the possible spirits and evildoers that the devil will take the form of to come and mess with humanity. And together with witches, one of the most trialed evil spirit has been the werewolves. So this one would be usually targeted towards men who maybe were foreigners, or they had some sort of difference about them. Maybe they suffered of epilepsy or any mental health disease, and by that, society wouldn't really accept them, wouldn't really recognize them as part of the community. And so they would say that they would put on this wolf fur on top of them and become wolves overnight, and that's why they were talking different or acting different. And so if you were someone that didn't fit the strict ways of living in the times of the Inquisition, if you were a woman, you would be tried as a witch. And if you were a man, you might have been trialed also as a wizard, but also as a werewolf. Interesting enough, as I told you before, this idea of the wolf comes back throughout different times in our history and throughout different cultures. The Navajo culture believed that actually women would put on wolf clothing and use that power, that energy of the independence and the wild to then do magic, either good or bad. So you see again and again this idea of wearing the wolf clothing means giving yourself more power, giving yourself power that it's very likely going to be judged, that's going to be seen as an offense. And this comes back in our traditional fairy tales. You see, I have a bit of a Red Riding Hood vibe today because of the video. And because if you look throughout the traditional fairy tale, this idea of the wolf, yes, is the big bad wolf. However, one of the ways that we get to mature this story is that the bad guy is necessary for the protagonist to go from a victim to the hero. And also, it acts as this warning. If Red Riding Hood would have not listened to the wolf, would have not strayed off her path, she would have gone where she needed to be. But instead of choosing out of her own independence, she let herself be influenced by others and therefore making a choice that wasn't true and authentic to herself. And again, we come to this idea of the wolf being like mean and bad, even in traditional Greek story, like the wolf that had to reach the grapes, or the wolf that invited the stork for lunch. There are all these stories where the wolf plays the bad guy. However, for how many negatives connotation of the wolf that you can find, you will be able to find an equal amount of positive one. So once again, in Greek culture, the wolf was the animal of Apollo. It was representing Apollo and was bringing light and order. I had the luck to see a Greek wolf when I was there on holiday, and their fur, it's beautiful and it's gray and they're like smaller, and it does give you this idea of lightness and cunning and wisdom. Again, in pony culture, I have my notes here. There is a story that when actually the first wolf was killed, that's when men became mortal, because they killed something so pure, so wise. And again, in Chinese culture, he is the gatekeeper to the other realm. And this brings us forward this idea of the two wolves. A wolf that is like greedy and mean, a little bit like the lone wolf that has to be more aggressive and more of a risk taker because he's hungry and he's alone. And on the other side, the more patriarchal, matriarchal alpha male, alpha female that take care of the pack, and they make sure that everybody, even the vulnerable, are taken care of. And interesting enough, in Chinese culture, the wolf is represented by the star of Sirius, and so is in Pony culture. So what I find fascinating about that is that two cultures that maybe have never crossed paths or never had a chance to exchange their information, they both recognize the wolf in this constellation of Sirius. And when it comes to spiritual things, I always say it's a game. We don't take these things too seriously, but we can let these things inspire us. We can get to find a more profound and a more human meaning to ourselves by learning from the cultures of the past and how there are certain patterns and certain things that repeat. In this case, I also want to mention, for example, in Hindu and Buddhist culture, the dog is the symbol of protection. It's usually around graveyards. And so here comes again this idea of the wolf being that necessary evil, that gatekeeper between this realm of humans that's limited, that's making Red Riding Hood choices, and the other one. And it's also in Pony culture that they tell this story where it was when the first wolf was killed by a human that humans became mortals. And this we also still find in the reality, because wolves have been hunted savagely by humans, so much so that in many parts of the world they are endangered species. So of course for Wolf Moon, I invite you to look into that, and if you feel like donating to any of the natural parks or the association that help keep them alive, I'll invite you to do that. It's a beautiful way also to reconnect with nature and to appreciate and make amends for past generation and what we've been doing. And still to these days, sometimes wolves are hunted using flags, which I was really surprised about. But basically, just the presence of something human, it's enough to raise the cortisol level of wild wolves. And this, I really wanted to be a lesson for us, also for our inner wolf. There's a part of us that's beautifully wild, and that it can be so nourishing, it can be so caring, but very often, again, we have this human ways where he becomes like the evil one and we go on hunting it and fighting it. And what we find is the more we do that, the more we are the mean one. We are the bad guy in the story. And so, my formula to reverse that is, what if we embraced this wildness? What if we allowed ourselves to be more with nature, like with the moon, with the wolves, with our inner darkness as well? So, I'd like to leave you with a quote that I think summarizes all the different stories, all the different informations about the wolf. And I hope it will be your inspiration to join us for our event or get in touch with me to discuss more of your beautiful darkness. So here it is. The darkness you embrace will liberate you. The darkness you fight will isolate you.